I don't need to brush my hair.
So, hi guys.
Hey, Lindsay.
Welcome to the 8 o'clock last Friday night event with Kirkland, Ciccone. I had to look that up to find out how to actually pronounce it. I was thinking, is it like
that's
spelling?
That's perfect, thank you.
Not a problem. And it's been given by the lovely Dr. Noir. So I googled a bit, and it said Kirkland is a punk rock, mondo weirdo, tall-tailed, fabulous, not drabulous. So author of 4 strange novels for young people. He's also the author of an adult novel called Happiness is Wasted on Me. So enjoy this with Kirkland and Dr. Noir, and then
Thank you, Lindsay. Yay!
We can talk about her now behind her back.
Yes, we can. And she'll never know. No, but seriously, it's so lovely to meet you. I've heard about you. I've read about you. I've read the book.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't wasted on me. It's the kind of read I think that is needed right now, because you just don't get stuck in it. I mean, it's like being on roller skates.
And I remember that from a long time ago.
Well, you certainly bring out the feeling of it, which is brilliant.
Thank you. By the way, you make me feel like an essential worker doing this. This is great. I feel like thank you for asking me to do this. I would have been just watching, a box set or something right now, eating a pot noodle.
I want to ask though, if you'd have been eating that pot noodle, would you be dressed the way you are dressed for this evening?
I would say no, I'd be in a tracksuit, but that would be a damn lie. I'd probably be wearing something stupid. Not quite this. I mean, this is, I thought I'd put this on just for a laugh, but, I'm sort of starting to regret it now since the central heating's on.
But please don't. Look at this. We've got fabulous comments already. Hi, Chris Longmuir and Paul Kane. Paul's living the lights. I must say it's extremely festive, and I love how your outfit goes with the lights as well. I think that is a really...
Don't worry about the faux fur stole, the central heating. I've got plenty of Lynx deodorant. I'm fine. I'm absolutely okay. He's got a bit of thought into the lights and the hat. Oh, look, that's a lie. I only wore this because my hair is a mess. But then everyone's hair is a mess right now, isn't it?
Exactly. Look at this. I'm desperate for a haircut. I was just thinking on what you were saying about Lynx deodorant and everything. I find that's been one of the amazing things about doing events online, that nobody needs know.
Thank God for deodorant and Wi-Fi.
Yeah. It's so different. All that thing of, because I know you do a lot of live performances.
Yes, I mean, that's one of the things I love about being writer. Even before I was an author, I was doing live events, but I wrote all my own material, which is why, most of it sucked at the time. But I got better because I kept performing. I kept reading my own material live. And you soon know the live audience whether or not it's good, or as my granddad would say, it's gank. Just
gank.
That's the kind of that's
where does that word come from?
I don't know. I think he's from Glasgow. I think I met him like twice or something. God rest his soul.
But that word obviously stuck with you.
Well, yes, it's one of those weird sort of. I think it's a Scottish word. I don't really know. But yeah, this is like one of the best parts about writing is the going out and promoting the book. When I'm going to sort of plug this a little.
Come on, do it. I'll hold it up like a good trolley dolly.
Like it's a crucifix to a vampire and bad taste is a vampire. No, when I first pitched it to the fledgling, they were the first people I went to with it. I said, listen, I've written the best book ever. Do you want to publish it? And they didn't say no or didn't laugh at me. So they put it out, and I was looking forward. It was meant to come out in March last year. Maybe someone will be able to correct me on that. It was meant to come out in March last year, and then a virus just came out of nowhere, and it changed. It weaponized the one thing, Jackie, that we rely on, and that's live events. Because it's I don't know if you can be a successful author if you don't get out there and promote,
I think it's really tricky. I remember this time last year, and just to say, hi Claire, it's not Paul, it's Claire that's actually there, but she's logged on Paul's account. So, and Gillian Hunt says it's lovely.
The music on, and it's rotten.
Is it rotten? What have they got on? What is it? Do you recognise it?
I think it's just like a beat, isn't it? And them screaming at each other every night.
And Gillian Hunt, do you know Gillian Hunt, Kirkland? Because she's saying
the librarian of part one libraries in North Lanarkshire Council. Actually, had about 10 of the libraries, but hello, Gillian.
Yay! She says it's great to see you on screen. Yay! Thank you for being here. So yeah, anybody out there, come in, come on, leave us comments, leave us questions, because this is the Friday evening session where we're laid back, chilled. What have you got on that cup? What is on the front of that cup?
Oh, that's my Doctor Who mug.
Oh, right. So you've given me the opening to ask you a question, because the book says that Cumbernauld. I'm going to come back to Cumbernauld because all roads lead to Cumbernauld. Yeah. It's really weird. I have an exceptionally really good friend who is from Cumbernauld, and
I'm glad.
and it was just like, you know, I didn't actually. Of course, other people come from it, but I'd never met anybody else. So it because you are from Cumbernauld, aren't you?
Yes, initially, I was pretty much, well, born in Glasgow, but raised in Cumbernauld, and then I moved out to sort of Falkirk Stirling way a few years ago. So I'm sort of here, there, and everywhere with this hair. And again, going back to sort of the whole lockdown thing, I've been stuck in this house for months. I really miss going out.
Yeah.
As we all do. You know, just like going into town, going to a bookshop, going to see my friends. My entire life was at lunch, brunch, lunch again, dinner, another dinner.
With the other way.
Live events on the phone.
Do you think, though, when we get out of this, because there will be an end to this, I mean, you know, if we look back in history, do you think we'll remember how to do it? You know, that glorious feel of an audience being there. I mean, I know there's people watching tonight, and that's brilliant, but you know, it's you and I having a very intimate moment, as far as I can feel.
I know what you're saying. I think a reading, for instance, a library reading is better when the audience is half cut, you know, so that's the kind of thing, you know, we all miss. Going to bars. I don't drink, but after some gigs, I feel like I should start, you know, so it's like turning up to events, reading, talking to people, other offers as well. Like, I miss book launches. You know, online book launches, my online book launch, I loved. Even though at the beginning of it, I forgot to turn the microphone off and everyone heard me screaming and swearing in the background for the first 10 minutes. But then it actually went okay, but still no, it's not like going into a bookshop and having people staring at you and giving you their money and offering, you know, do you want a glass iron brew, Kirkland, that kind of thing.
That kind of thing, because I think that is probably one of the best offers that anybody can make you in life. But come back to Doctor Who for me a minute, and I'm going to ask you that really tricky question: is, do you have a favourite Doctor of all the Doctors?
Right. So, in order to avoid the hate mail from crazy
fans,
I honestly love most of them. I love all of them. I think it's actor proof. My personal favourites, the Pertwee era. I love John Pertwee. I love that he dressed like a Tory, but he despised Tories. You know, he would bully pen pushers, and you know, as much as he would bully the Daleks. Tom Baker, Sylvester McCoy was the one that I grew up with as a kid. Chris Jackson, David Tennant, Pierre Capaldi, Jodie Whittaker. I love her as well. I think she's excellent. Yeah, so I'm just like a big Doctor Who fan. But then you find it, a lot of people that work in what we do, some of them are Doctor Who fans, and others probably wouldn't watch it. I'm not sure. I've never really. Some of our author friends are Doctor Who fans. Roy Gill, he writes Doctor Who, and he wrote 2 really brilliant children's books that maybe one day will be back in print. Werewolf Parallel and Demon Parallel. Don't know if you've.
No, I haven't. I'm here to learn. It's great. Teach me.
We can talk about Agatha Christie and crime authors later as well. You know,
Later, we can do that later. I'm a forever student, and I love it when somebody takes me elsewhere and opens
So
other.
bloody Andy. Like, on a journey.
Yeah, exactly. That's that's what I'm expecting that you will do. And then I just wanted to ask, because you mentioned John Pertwee, and because that takes me back to that was my moment of
Was it?
coming into Doctor Who. Yeah. And I remember sitting on the sofa with the cushion or behind the sofa. Was it like that for you as a kid?
No, because we didn't really. My mum didn't like cushions, so she just had like a normal couch and like a
Nowhere
single
to
position
hide.
television. And every time the TV license man drove by, we had to pretend to, hide behind the couch. If she's watching this, she'll pull me in. It was. This is the thing. Back in the early 90s, when I was watching more and more television, and that coincided with like the reading period when I first started to read books. Because we all get into books at a certain age, and for me, late 80s, very early 90s was the start. But on television, we didn't have Doctor Who, but I had all the old videos. We had Twin Peaks,
Mhm.
the X-Files, like must-see American television, all that kind of stuff. So I watched that obsessively, but I still don't think I was weird. I was a bit weird. I'm still a bit weird, but I watched UK Gold a lot. A lot of like all the old crap TV shows from Britain that they don't show anymore, because maybe I don't know if they're out of fashion. But yeah, I
Yeah.
watched UK Gold. I loved it. I loved all the old TV shows, and the libraries had no budget back then, so they had to keep all their old books. So I got to read, books from the 80s,
That
from
back
the 70s.
catalogue. I just think you should know. I'm not sure if you're seeing it, Kirkland, but Claire Kane is of the Pertwee era and behind the
Oh,
sofa as well. Yes,
okay.
yes. A different sofa though, I must add. And Claire told me she's a Sylvester McCoy. Chris is a Tom Baker fan. I'm just
Yeah,
loving the.
Sylvester McCoy, she told me once, I'm just going to shame her online in public.
Go on.
She's like, no, not that era. Kirkland, shut up.
I just love how we've got those fans out there. That again, that culture that joins us together. This is your first crime novel, but
It's a
before we
young
get
adult and adult. Like,
ex-
completely. I'd written for, if people don't mind me going into it for 2 seconds, I wrote.
yeah, come on.
So back in 2012, I wanted to be like a really cool author of young adult fiction. Back then, it was just becoming young adult. Before that, it was juvenile. That's what we called it. As the librarians listening might know. And I wanted to be a really cool young adult author. I thought there's no such thing as cult YA. I'm going to be a cult YA author. The problem is there's a reason why there's not such a thing as cult YA because YA is major publishing powered fiction. Of all the YA novels are published on small presses, some on Fledgling, some on Cranachan, like Ross Sayers.
Yeah.
They do well and they punch above their weight because they're so good. But then at the end of the day, when all the awards come up, it's usually Bloomsbury and the London publishers who can send out cupcakes to all the readers, and decorate them in pink glitter and stuff. I don't know. I'm not saying cupcakes make young adult fiction popular, with the bigger publishers, but it felt unfair to me. But I wrote 4 young adult novels, very weird, like strange young adult novels. I thought it was being punk, and some of them were virtually unreadable. I still like them, but that's what they were. They're a bit strange, and there was an audience for them. But then I always wanted to write cult fiction, and I thought, you know what, I want to write an adult novel. I want to write a book for grown-ups, so I can sort of go and meet people my age, and sort of get them to buy my books. Because this is the thing, I was touring all the schools, and librarians were wonderful. Librarians really, really gave me all their money. They gave me all their money. Librarians were really, really good, but I felt a sort of pressure. You can't have swearing in the books. You can't do this. You can't do that, because parents would disagree. And one of my books was about a crazy serial killer girl and her pet unicorn from another world. It was crazy, and I couldn't exist sort of.
She sounds like my kind of girl, actually.
Yes, maybe if you want to read that book, if you can
I
still
do.
get it. But
I do.
I wanted to write the kind of books that I read. And that's what I've always done. And it became like a vendetta to write the books that I wanted to read. So I wanted to write a book for adults. And I wanted to write, oh, something's dropped, that's okay. I wanted to write a book for adults. And I wanted it to be, I know it sounds dumb, I wanted to write something with substance, that had
Yeah, yeah.
some fluid in it, I hope. And I went back to my childhood. And I took some of the details and I wrote a coming of age novel called Happiness is Wasted on Me. And yeah, I hope the reaction's been really good. So I assume that people are really liking it. I'm getting a lot of good reviews, and the people that seem to have read it sticks with me.
It is. It is. It's I mean, it is a cracking read.
Thank you.
It sparks all the way, and whilst there's a really difficult part in there that, shall we call that the crime? That is really
And
difficult.
that's part of that was the part I knew was going to be controversial. But I think a part of it, that punk part, I want to shock people. And I thought, right, let's put something in it that's really difficult to digest. I won't give it away to the readers, people that might sort of buy it after watching this, or the people you might tell to. But I wanted it to be a little bit controversial, so I added certain elements in. But I hope I've handled it in a way that's not exploitative, and it's humanity. It's human. It's got like kindness to it, and
very I think very much so, and I think I think the point of view helps, and we'll talk about Walter, Walter's character, who he is, and what the world is like for Walter. But I think seeing it through Walter's eyes makes this crime.
It makes it more personal.
Doesn't it? And I think it's that thing of, often when we read crime novels, it's things at a distance. They feel a little bit distant, but
a lot of them are police procedurals. And that's the thing. I love a good crime novel. I love a hood on it. And all my books, see, looking back, even the young adult books, they all have a whodunit element. Now, Happiness is Wasted on Me. It's a bit the structure. I'm really proud of how it's written, and I really love how it's been structured. But the crime element seems to disappear for a while, and the reader might be forgiven and thinking, well, that's it then, nothing more's going to happen, and then it comes back in a very shocking way. And I've had a lot of emails about it. One person thought that the murder was symbolic of Cumbernauld. They were like, oh, it represents the corpse, represents the town, as it decays away. And I said, no, it represents the corpse. The town's, the backing track to the song, shall we say. But it's, so a lot of people are having different opinions on it. All good so far. But the crime element is still an important part of it. Claire didn't know whether she could market it as a crime novel. She didn't know if she should market it as Scottish fiction, as literary fiction even. And she could market it as everything, because it's got a lot going on, but it's a crime novel.
Yeah, and you've raised something that has been going round in my head all day. I've been waiting to ask you this. Let's open this one up, and maybe okay. So Claire said Walter's really accessible, and the reader can empathise with the child's view. Yeah, definitely.
Up through the course of the book as well. It takes place over 10 years, and I chose the 90s because to me the 90s is one of the most exciting and interesting decades. Musically, in terms of pop culture, in terms of politics, everything that was happening in Scotland and Britain at the time just resonates with me more than, say, the 80s or more than what happened afterwards. And I didn't want it to be a nostalgia book, but at the same time, I wanted it to have some kind of grounding to it. Does that make sense?
I think it's really difficult for it not to be for readers of a certain age, because music, things that people say, things that talk about, it just sparks a feeling of way back when, or when that was happening. But that said, even though there's that past setting, it feels like you live in it now. The way you write has that energy of now, and I don't think it's written with that golden time, because because Walter's living that moment, and it's not through rose tinted glasses. or anything like that. But you were talking about, where should this book sit? And I like it because Claire said several themes mean that there's something for everyone. But there's two things that I've been thinking about. Number one, the way that you write, and also what you've written before. Is yours the kind of writing that will bring younger generations from YA into reading crime fiction? Because,
There was a part of that. There was a
you
part
know,
of that because it makes sense for if your background was in YA, and I'm not so well known outside of Scotland that people would care that much. But if your background's in YA, making your first adult novel have a protagonist who's a child makes sense to sort of draw them, and then it ages throughout the whole book.
Mhm.
But yeah, no, there was definitely some, that was deliberate.
Yeah, I definitely. And then, are we living? I mean, we're living in a time of change. Yeah, again, I felt that talking to my students today. The perspective of the now,
Mhm.
as opposed to and the diversity that is existing, that is developing. Do books need to sit in a certain section on a certain shelf? I know for publicity it's tricky, but I wonder, are we moving into a time where writing is, I don't know, so much more fluid in what it's doing or being?
Yeah, I think what you've just said is interesting because I have always been terrified of being stamped, filed, categorized, classified. The only reason that books need to sit on certain shelves is to help sell them or to help, locate them in a sense. Agatha Christie's crime, because there's a murder in all of her books, although you could put them on the fiction shelf as well, because obviously it's fiction. That kind of thing. I like the idea that I'm difficult to place. It doesn't always help commercially. That's the problem.
Quite, yeah.
Because this book coincided with a lockdown, I want so many people to read it because I think I'm just so proud of it, Jackie. But it's also difficult for a publisher to push it in a certain direction because they don't quite know where to push it. And one of the things that Fledgling liked about it was it straddled a few different lines, and they also liked that it was commercial because I think it's easy to read. It's easy to read, and I wrote it to be easy to read, but it's also got moments where the writing tries to be literary, I suppose. But yeah, it's a strange time. People are finding their identities through, as they always have done, through music, through literature, through what they're seeing on the screen, through their communities, and books play an important part in that. The things that shaped me most were punk music, trash television, trash cinema, high literature, low literature. These are the things that help shape your identity. So, fluid fiction can help fluid people, I suppose, in a way. And the main character, something as well, the main
Come on.
character is
Yeah.
bisexual. And I knew that writing a coming of age book, because all coming of age books are quite similar, Jackie. It's always, a boy or a girl getting to grips with life. They meet a boy or a girl, they fall in love, they get their heart broken. The fact that the main character in Happiness is Wasted on Me is asexual, he has no, connection physically to people, means that this isn't going to be your average coming of age story because the coming of age part of it is removed. It's just him feeling trapped in a kind of perpetual adolescence, but finding his way slowly to who he is, if that makes sense. So that's something I think's a bit unique about it.
I think it is. I think it is. And coming back to that idea of identity, and as we've been considering much more recently, like Black Lives Matter and people seeing themselves represented on pages and on screen, and yet, for asexual people, how
No
often,
representation.
yeah, where do I see myself? Where do I read myself? Where's that recognition of my existence?
Well,
So,
one of the things that when I first met up with Claire from Fledgling, so she bought me a quiche, which was very nice of her, and that sort of sold me on Fledgling.
totally.
To get along with, Packy McVitie's ginger nuts, and I'm your best friend. So she bought me a quiche, And I said to her, I said, does asexuality fall on the LGBTQ plus scale? You know, where does it fall? Or like, is an asexual person even separate from that community?
Yeah.
And as someone who I consider myself punk, I mean, I'm old and fat, but I'm still punk, you know, and you know, asexuality, I just think, where's my place in the world? Who am I to all these other people? And Walter's got a lot of that as well. You know, Walter, as he's grown up, sort of has to figure his place out when people try to put him in boxes.
Yeah.
And that, again, you're talking about, you know, people being fluid in society and your students and identity. At the end of the day, boxes are still there and people try and put you in boxes. It's very difficult to not be stamped, filed, or categorized or classified, you know?
It is. And but I just to keep going on what you're saying, because I think it's a subject that we should just give a little bit more time to.
Yeah.
The idea of where, you know, if LGBTQ plus spectrum is there, but all that vindication, all that is about expressing one's sexuality.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's the guys, it's fine, I just don't have one. I can't. Yeah. So
That's, I think that is part of the scale, though. It's part of the LGBTQ plus. I mean, this is stuff that I had to look up on as well. At some point, you've got to like find where, and even for categorizing the book, like, is it an LGBTQ whatever book, you know, plus book, or is it like, how do you put it all together? So there's a commercial aspect to it as well, because you've got to know what shelf to put it on.
yeah,
You know?
who will it appeal to? But I come back again to Claire's comment. I think it's that you know, it can't be placed in one genre, but it is a book that, you know, I think if you've had children, if you went to school in the 90s, if you wore those clothes, I have to ask you, that's just because your clothing is fabulous. It is one of these moments where
you can go first though.
that's why I wish again we were live. I'd ask you, could I just, yes, promise me when this is over, you and I are going to do something, and I'll put on my best stuff. I was just a little bit relaxed tonight because you told me we were going to be free and easy.
I mean, I think it's a brilliant idea. I'd love to do more at the bar if you think the book fits in.
Please. Yeah, of course it fits in. That would be tremendous. I hold you to that. But go.
I would have done it by now. I'm just, like I said, we're all trapped and we can't do live events. You know, I'm actually doing, let me plug something if you don't mind. I'm actually doing a live event. I was going to do it at the end of April, but I think it'll be the start of May. Like my digital book launch, which was effectively like a mini movie, you know, with lots of readings from the book and footage of Cumbernauld and just different stuff. And I'm going to do a sequel, like a live event, a launch. And, well, not a launch, but because bookshops will be opening again. I think that's worth celebrating. You know, I can't wait. So I'm going to do a live event on Facebook Live that will be streamed to everyone. So, you know, if you aren't following me on Facebook, you know, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Instagram, follow me on Twitter. Don't follow me home, but follow me on all these other things, you know, and you'll be able to see it at the end of the month start.
Will you be in a different outfit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, this is fine. So when I first started writing, I wanted to grab attention, so I just wore a fur coat to the first high school I went to. You know, I had to go and promote a book, so I turned up in a fur coat and a pair of like Dr. Martin boots, and it was like an alien had landed. This was 2013, before the Vogue offers like dressing up. People didn't know what to make of me. You know, from 2013, you should see some of the stuff I've worn, but to me it was punk. You know, just sort of turning up when everyone's in uniform, turning up in like a cape.
Just disrupting all.
Fabulous, not fabulous. That's what I say.
Take me to Cumbernauld, because the truth is I've never been there.
36. You get there. The stagecoach can take you there as well. No. Cumbernauld is a fascinating, strange town. It was built, so it was a town. They wanted basically the overspill from Glasgow. So they built an experimental town with flat roofs. The houses had flat roofs because they thought that rain couldn't touch Cumbernauld. You know, they had such optimism. And of course, being Scottish weather, the houses were flooded. So what they did was they built the town, put roofs on them eventually, like proper roofs. And it was a bit of an experiment. It was a new town, like all the other new towns, sort of post-war new town. But Cumbernauld developed a reputation for experimentation. Its structures, its architecture, its town centre, its iconic town centre was voted ugliest building in Britain. And Cumbernauld was voted most dismal place to live in Scotland. I think it won the Pluke on the Plinth award like 3 times in a row. Someone can correct me, but I think it won it 3 times in a row. And then when I moved out, the town that I moved into for a while won the award that year.
It's you. It's you.
Cumbernauld has a reputation as the ugly town of Scotland. But see, I love that about it. A lot of people get really upset. Years ago, I was filmed for Newsnight Scotland about Cumbernauld because I'd been doing one-man shows at Cumbernauld Theatre about the town. And well, the barber gave my sideburns, cut them to different lengths because I was boasting I was going to be on TV that night, and he got his revenge on me by giving me different sideburns, revenge sideburns, when I appeared on television. And when I said the town was ugly, people gasped, the cameraman gasped. And I said, no, it is ugly, but why is that a bad thing? I love that about Cumbernauld. I love that it's strange, and, you know, all the roads were built, the paths were built so you would never need to cross the road for safety. And the theory is you could leave your door, you know, in Greenfield, which is a place in Cumbernauld, and walk all the way to Apron Hill at the other side of town, and you wouldn't need to cross the road. So they had their eyes on safety, but then you'd have to go underneath the tunnels, which were then spray painted, and drug addicts and drunks would fall asleep underneath them and stuff. I met my brother there once, and then you could it became a town for reputation, is what I'm trying to say. But I, as a young kid, I just loved the weirdness. I loved getting in lifts that broke down. I loved sort of running up ramps that had death threats spray painted on the walls. You know, it was just a very strange place to live. And that weirdness sort of seeped into me and everyone else, because the town centre's like this giant superstructure that was built in the 60s. It looks like a battleship or a rabbit hutch with no legs. You know, it looks like a weird kind of concrete behemoth. I call it a concrete kingdom, I think, in the book. And it just like place you could get lost in it for hours. As a kid, that's amazing. As an adult trying to find a shop or the library open floor free, it was a nightmare to live, you know, to go to, because you couldn't find your way anywhere. It's so I think it started to go downhill financially, and we started to neglect the town. But I wanted to put the town in this book because, like it or hate it, there's nowhere like Cumbernauld. It's completely unique. I think it needs its dues a little bit, you know.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because even though on a number of occasions there's a chapter called leaving Cumbernauld, yeah, but then there's always this, you know, this coming back, this you know,
you
it's
can't
like
get away.
Yeah, that it draws you back. Just some of the comments Claire told me, says it's so undeserved. Poor Cumbernauld.
I'm so sorry. I'm not bashing the town. I love it, really. I mean, I'm its official biographer practically at this point. So how could I bash the town?
And Neil McGrory, whilst commenting on your lovely outfits, Neil also says, my favourite description was a giant spaceship from the planet Crap.
Who was it? There was a crime author that said it was, she called it the alien's head. That's what she called the actual town centre building. She called it, who was it? Ask the people that are currently there. Which crime author called it the alien's head? She said it looked like E.T. had been decapitated, which is like such a brilliant description. And it was, who was it?
If anybody out, I was going to say, if anybody out there knows, please put it up in the.
Which crime author?
Who was it? There's a prize to be had. Well, if we were here in real life, we could say there's a drink to be had at the end, or a signed copy of the book. But as it is, we'll just be eternally grateful. And Helen, yes, Helen Giles. I love this comment from Helen Giles. She says, "What you're describing is this an episode of Doctor Who I'd love to see." Yeah, idea of E.T. get decapitated.
It's one of the episodes that don't exist anymore, where the Doctor steps out the TARDIS, looks at town, and gets right back in again.
Get him back in.
Goes to the prehistoric age or something. I don't know.
Get me out of here.
Company is the perfect set. It's where Gregory's Girl was filmed as well.
It's classic. It is classic. It really is.
Movie
Yes,
in Scotland, and
exactly.
not a book about teenagers because he's an adult and part of it, but it sort of makes sense. It's like Gregory's Girl's horrible sister or something. That's what the book is. The sister they don't invite to Christmas party.
The one that you just make sure your mates never meet. Now, I have another cultural question for you, and it's been playing on my mind since I moved in September. I moved to Edinburgh for good, sort of thing, although I've been doing a lot here. And in it, I'm loving the marketing there. In the book, in chapter 6, there's a talk about the New Year's steak pie tradition.
Oh my God, that bloody steak pie! Yes.
Now imagine me, newly settled, and it's the only places that we're able to go to under lockdown. Is to supermarkets, and at one point I see Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's full with these large steak pies. What is that? What is that tradition?
I don't eat red meat or pork. I'm not vegetarian. I eat like chicken, I'll eat fish. I don't eat red meat or pork, but I'm also a hypocrite because I wear Dr. Martens and put milk in my tea. I don't know. It is a traditional thing. Like growing up, every New Year, we had to eat the bloody steak pie. And my Aunt Bessie, God bless her, used to put gravy on everything. She wouldn't just make gravy, she would kill the food with gravy. She would pour, it was like Bisto on crack. She would pour the gravy. It was like a bucket of gravy. And then she put brown sauce. Like, who mixes gravy with brown sauce? And so I can't, every time I talk about steak pie or I see a steak pie, I think of her horrible gravy. How you're drowning in it. You just swim in it. You were drowning in it. And I think a bit of revenge went into the book. The Findus crispy pancake scene as well.
I totally agree with you. And the steak pie chapter though, what I loved, it brought back for me reminiscence of Shirley Valentine. When Fish Tank says, "What's this? What is this pie? This is not the pie I wanted." Like in Shirley Valentine, he says, "What's this muck?" I don't.
How can you be a connoisseur of a steak pie? It's crazy. It's like one steak pie. Now, I'm maybe going to cause controversy here with everyone that's attending. One steak pie is like another, surely. Or do you get like a really good one in Kirkland and Falkirk, maybe? I don't know.
Let's just ask the audience out there. Chris Longmuir has come in already on this one. Yeah. My granny always serves steak pie after the midnight bells at New Year. Only time I ever ate steak pie in the middle of the night. So, Chris, and to everybody else out there who is familiar with the tradition, would you agree that one steak pie is just like any other, or is that New Year's steak pie something a bit different?
I'm getting lynched now. They're going to introduce me to my new friend, the bitch slap. They're going to be so annoyed.
Maybe we should move swiftly on, and let's do that by let's center on Walter for a while.
Okay.
You've introduced him to us a little bit, but I wonder how long was Walter
What's the word?
I don't know. Well, yeah, but just a minute. Can you see people's comments on the pies?
No, I can't see at all. I've got my contact lenses in, and they're rubbish.
Right, I'll tell you. Right, so Claire told me, says Kirk's Butchers in Denny. Chris Longmuir is saying no two steak. No two steak pies are ever the same. Whereas Claire Kane says they're all the same.
I thought he was like agreeing with me, and then no two steak pies are ever the same.
And Helen Giles wins the prize for coming up. She's been on that Wikipedia as Helen Giles, saying writers including author Cara Ramsey has referenced. Yeah, reference the alien's head, a moniker given by locals to the unsightly top section of the building. Yeah.
Do you not remember? There was a
Thank you,
TV show
Helen.
done 4 years ago, okay, called Demolition. And basically, the town of Cumbernauld voted and campaigned to have the town centre blown up, like knocked down. And
Shit.
they got Channel 4 to come. So initially, when I first finished the book, I wanted to open it with Janet Street Porter, a quote from Janet Street Porter. She is on the episode at the start on a bus as the bus drives through to Cumbernauld. And I'll never forget this. And, I forget everything. I remember it like it was yesterday, even though I don't remember yesterday. She saw Cumbernauld Town Centre and Janet Street Porter screamed. She screamed, she went, "What is that?" That's not her accent, by the way. And I thought, oh my God, I've got to quote that. I couldn't find the episode. They campaigned to have the town centre knocked down. Like, literally. And when they couldn't have it knocked down, people were very disappointed. But I've heard through friends that the town centre might be getting knocked down now. They're going to build a brand new shopping complex. We have a mall in Cumbernauld soon, maybe in the next decade. Not just a shopping centre, but a mall.
But will it lose something?
Yeah, it will lose lifts that don't work. Leaky ceilings, it will lose leaky ceilings. Well, the thing is, like, as much as, again, I love the ugliness of the town centre, just the strangeness, but I'm sort of at a point now where I would really like to see what else they could do. Like Stirling's Thistle Centre. Now, I don't know if anyone will agree. I love the Thistle Centre. It's got a Waterstones. It's got an H&M. I don't really fit into the clothes anymore, unfortunately. What else? It's got a Zara. Definitely don't fit into their clothes, but I used to, and I loved it. It's got so much going for it. I love the Thistle Centre. I would love more in the town centre. There's a brilliant library up on the third floor in Cumbernauld Town Centre, one of the biggest libraries ever. It's huge. And more people should go to it. But if the lifts never work, how are they getting up there?
How are you going to get there? Yeah.
I think Welsh did a live gig there years ago, and I saw her coming up the ramp. And I felt sorry for her because those ramps are steep, and they've got pigeons, and pigeons don't like people invading their territory.
That is scary. It is. Neil, it's a little bit of rivalry here between Helen and Neil for providing information tonight. It's great. Neil's responded about the steak pie tradition, saying the New Year's steak pie tradition is connected to Christmas not being a holiday in Scotland for 400 years. And that's why hogmanay is a thing.
Right. Neil is like, the human version of teletext. It's just like finding all the information.
It's brilliant. I'm loving the fact of sharing this in community. It's and learning stuff as we go along. But back to Walter.
Buy the book, Neil. Buy the book.
Yes, buy the book. Find out more.
Buy it. If you buy this book, your life will be better.
It will. I can attest to that. The gestation of Walter Wedgworth. Okay. Right. How long was he ruminating within before you first put him down on the page? On the screen.
He was the first thing that came to mind while I was doing the story. He was the first person, so I know that I wanted to write an asexual protagonist, and I know it was going to he was going to be based on me when I was young and skinny. And I had other things, I didn't want to write from a female perspective because a lot of the YA books that I wrote were from sort of unreliable narrators. Those books didn't have them. And I thought, I'm going to write a male character, but of course I can't just write a normal typical male. He's got to be asexual. So that was really the central part of the book. Everything else just came out of him. It was very quick. It was very natural. His original name wasn't Walter Wedgworth. The original title wasn't Happiness is Wasted on Me, which is stupid because it's one of my favourite things I've ever done. Such a good title. So a lot does change, but he always pretty much remained the same.
And this young man, or this lad that grows up, and the family that that he finds himself in. Yet very often he doesn't feel like he's part of that family as you read.
No, because it's one of those things again. it's not like I don't feel like I'm part of my own family, but sometimes you look at them, you think, bloody hell, was I adopted? Like, how can I be part of this? You know. So when my brother committed his first armed robbery, let's just get that out there. This was years ago. He committed his first armed robbery, and I'll never forget. He came into the house, and he was like, he's just robbed the supermarket. I'm like, bloody hell, you go to the supermarket and you buy marshmallows. This was a long time ago. You buy marshmallows and you buy, biscuits and things. You don't go and rob them, for God's sake. And that kind of feeling of perpetual indignance, is that word? Indignancy?
Indignity, yeah.
Had never left me. And sometimes my family really bring it out. But a bus driver can bring it out, when he calls you hen when I've got my longer hair. And I'm like, no.
Excuse me. Yeah.
I've got that kind of perpetual indignant nature about me. And that can be very alienating when it's your own family. But at the same time, my family, even though they're completely strange and completely crazy, without them, I wouldn't have half the stories to tell that I've got. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of, even though I grew up desperately wanting to be middle class and wishing, that we could get out of a council house and go to Dullard, which is the posh end of Cumbernauld, it was such a blessing to be, working class, because that's what it was. Such a blessing to be around not creative people, but just interesting people who were always doing stuff. Wasn't always good stuff, but they were always doing stuff. And it was never boring. That's the thing, growing up in a town like that with a family like mine, it was never ever dull. And I'm grateful. So a lot of that went into the book as well. Fictionalized, of course. But a lot of it
it's like the percentage of Walter is what percentage of you. You don't need to say, it's okay.
Well, no, this has been asked. Everybody says it's an autobiography. Walter's less confident than me. Walter's a bit more estranged from everything around him, whereas I was right in there. And I was always very loud, not obnoxious. Actually obnoxious, yeah. I was always, wearing bright clothes, wearing ridiculous stuff. Even at school, I had a tracksuit with my name on it. Like, my mother made me a tracksuit with my name, a white tracksuit. There's a mistake. There might be photographs somewhere. And I felt like a Batman supervillain in primary school. Really ugly shell suits as well. Everyone sort of wore shell suits and I was wearing personalised clothes. So no wonder I developed a bit of a character. So there is a lot of me in Walter, but at the same time, writing completely autobiographically narrows a lot as well. Narrows your scope, because then you think, well, could that character do that? Because I wouldn't do that. And you can't really. The plot has also got to be important. And I knew where the book was going to end.
Where the book was going to go, yeah.
Flat, in Bandonhouse Road, yeah.
That's great. I think we might have two buyers for the book. Well, Chris Longmuir says she's tempted. I'm presuming it's about your book and not about another steak pie. And Neil says he'll have to buy it as he's no longer writing art stories. So yeah, I think there could be definitely two people out there that are interested in this book. Shall we just show people again?
Let me just
in case
my plastic surgery that I intend to pay for next year when I can breathe the same air as a surgeon.
It's vital. Yeah, get those cheap ones. Yeah.
People thought, listen, is guilty this. So this was. Let's talk about the cover for a moment.
Oh, please do.
I love this cover. Now, if people don't like it, and it's not for everybody, it's really because I pushed really hard for something like this. So the cover artist is Andrew Fortief. And he deserves a lot of credit. He's so talented. He's one of the best artists in Scotland in terms of, book jacket cover art. He's wonderful. And I told him I wanted the front cover to look like a rave flyer from the 90s or a lo-fi punk magazine. I said, what's that old-fashioned letter writing? Cetraset? Is that what you call it? Where you scratch the letters.
Yeah, Letraset. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. I says, I want that. I found a royalty-free photograph of a very cool dude and said, that can be Walter. But what Andrew did was he zoomed right in Walter's mouth, which looks like a frown, and he made my name look like a smile, which I thought was excellent. Really, really good. And here's the back of it as well, folks. It's really well it's the first time I've had a book where everything has gone the way I wanted it. Now, all the authors that are here tonight will tell you how rare that is. Because sometimes you don't get what you want, but Fledgling, they probably cursed my name late at night when they were having their Ovaltine or cigarettes or whatever. They must have cursed me because I was so persistent. I said, please, please let me have Andrew Forty. Please let me have this design. Please let me have this. They contributed as well. They chose the bright colour orange because initially Jacket was going to be bright yellow. But I mean, like I says, I love the cover so much, and
Yeah.
it's got a little bit of Cumbernauld Town Centre in it as well. Plus Cumbernauld Town Centre's windows, which you might not notice, there's sort of the porthole windows.
Yeah,
Very
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so that was the cover.
Chris has written the title down, and Neil's just ordered his copy. So yay,
Fantastic.
which is great. I just pick up on what you said there about choices around, you know, what a book looks like, and
Yes.
and to me, there's always the danger, and it's really difficult, isn't it? Because a trend happens, and books, and I'm thinking especially of the crime genre now, and everybody's book cover
Look the same.
seems to start to look the same. And the brilliant thing about this, all jokes aside, is I don't know anybody else's book cover that looks like that. I mean, really don't.
It's different. It really is. It's like, so back in the 90s, because again, 90s themed, I would love to walk past Otakers in Glasgow. Beautiful
Yeah, yeah.
Waterstones, but also Borders. You remember Borders?
Oh God, yeah.
And they would have Irvine Welsh's new book cover, super massive, blown up, and 90s cover art, like the cover for Filth, the Irvine Welsh novel, you know, the pig with the just really cool, bold graphic art. Blue cover, pink cover, the train spotting cover art, all these brilliant books, The Beach, these cult books that came out that I was reading, that I became obsessed with, that I wanted to write something, which I don't know if I ever will, but I wanted to write a really cult book. They all had really striking, bold covers, and that was another aspect. I said, we need to have something that makes me feel the same way. Not necessarily the reader, me. I wanted to feel the same way I felt when I was walking down Glasgow and I saw the cover of these books, like the Des Dillon books and things as well.
Mhm.
You know, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was part of that as well.
And I love what you say, you know, of being able to be a whole part of that. You know, I think I really appreciate what Fledgling do.
I appreciate them more now.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and just listening to your experience, that really, you know, it's really heartening. I love that. I've got lots more questions. I'm aware
Okay.
of the time, and I just
Maybe
wonder.
ask the PIN number though, that you're not getting that.
I want to get. Oh, come on! But if anybody else has got questions, please get them in now. We're going to go to the 1990s, if that's all right.
Right.
And because I'm not as good as the looking up things as Helen Giles, but I did have a look up of what was number one on the 12th of April 1992. Do you know?
No, I will know the song, but I can't think offhand what was number one. What was it?
Vanessa Williams, Save the Best Till Last.
Really?
Well, it looked like that. It looked like that for me. It looked like, I think Michael Jackson was number one beforehand, and then going into April, she went to number one. You went and saved the best till last. That was quite nice, thinking about your book. You know, this idea of this is the last book that I've read this year, and I feel it's done something different for me. I've loved the other books that I've read. You know, don't get.
No, this is the thing. Thank you for that, because even though now I sent the book out and Fledgling sent the book out to a lot of reviewers, I don't know why COVID. It is COVID. Let's be honest. It has been very difficult to reach the audience that I want it to reach. Don't get it wrong; it's still doing well. It's still getting out and about, but you know, just to get out there again and to sort of get it into newspapers and magazines, it has definitely been tough to get out there. What's more frustrating, it's the best thing I've ever written. I know, and I'm hoping my next book is different but good as well. But this one, to sort of get out, so it's just nice to hear
Mm-hmm.
you appreciated it. That's the best thing, you know.
Yeah, I know.
You can
So,
praise
so
them,
you
like,
know, I'll be having a wee shout out about this on all my various
thank you very
places
much.
and
I do appreciate
spaces.
that. Because it can't be me all the time telling people to read my book or else.
No worries. We do have a question for you from Helen Giles. I love it.
Hello, Ellen.
She wants to know, is it Iron Brew that's in your travel mug?
It was actually, this is my middle class inspiration or aspiration. It was actually, was it Tesco Value though? Maybe that will take away from it. It's Earl Grey tea. It's Earl Grey tea from Twinings or from one of the other shops. But I do like Iron Brew, which is why my teeth are like this. I thought,
But Earl Grey. Okay, so we've discussed, or we've mentioned that notion of class and working class voices. You
well, the
know,
publishing industry in Scotland's very middle class. Let's be honest, if we're going to just call it out, it's one of the most middle class industries available in the country. And it's tough because I'm not middle class, not really. But at the same time, the industry's also lovely. And I mean, I've never felt anyone sort of going against me. I've been very lucky that people seem to like me, I hope. Well, unless they're bitching about me behind my back. But it's a very middle class industry. But you are seeing a lot of people, you know, working class voices coming up, especially now. You know, it's happening, you know, with like Shuki Bain and stuff like that. These are like
yes.
and I mean, I love Shuki Bain. I was terrified my book was too similar because my book was meant to come out before it. And then when I saw the plot and it was to do with alcoholism and stuff, which isn't my book at all, but it was set in the 80s and it was a coming of age story. And there was also another book called Blessed Assurance, and that's a coming of age story set in Scotland in the 60s. And then there's another book about Cumbernauld that came out, which was a book set in Cumbernauld in the 70s. It all seemed to just happen at once. The Young Team, a coming of age story. So all these books, all of a sudden, it's like, it happens in publishing all the time. It's like a crowd to the wave. It all seems to just happen in one go.
Exactly, but capturing those voices again that maybe haven't had that possibility of being heard. You know, I think, you know, the fact that you bring
are a godsend, like Fledgling and, you know, all the other small presses in Scotland. Praise the Lord for them, because they actually give people, I wouldn't say marginalised, I would consider myself marginalised, but they give people an opportunity, you know, that might not get them in the major publishing labels, which, you know, I'll publish something on a major label at some point, I'm sure, but I'm speaking about them like the record labels, aren't I? I still have that punk band mentality, the indies, the major labels selling out, you know, all that kind of stuff.
And speaking, and I know Lindsay's with us, but Lindsay, are we all right for a few more questions? Is that all right?
No, not keep asking away.
So, music, and you bring us, you know, so much music in this book, you know, the soundtrack that's playing in the book. But I am going to allow you from the 1990s 3 tracks, only 3. Which 3 tracks from your younger days would you take with you to a desert island?
Well, I need to get a passport before I went to desert islands. I need to renew it. It's still in the drawer somewhere. Oh God, it's a tough one. So let me think. So don't laugh. I'm going to also be very credible and pick credible music. Actually, this is credible. Betty Boo. I'm going to have Betty Boo, Where Are You, Baby? Which I just loved Betty Boo. I still love her. My sister had like a suitcase under her bed full of cassettes and tapes, and it had like Technotronic, it had Betty Boo, orchestral maneuvers in the dark, all that kind of stuff. But I love Betty Boo. Growing up, she was Snoozy and the Banshees. I know they're not really a 90s band, but I would listen to them growing up a lot as well. 90s songs. So Betty Boo, Where Are You, Baby? I know it's maybe Nirvana, Smells Like Teen Spirit. That was a big deal. In the 90s as well, let me think. I'm going to throw a curveball. Juliana Hatfield. I know a lot of people might not know who she is. She was in a band called Lake Babies, and she did a song called Spin the Bottle. And as a kid, I thought it was like the coolest song ever. The thing is, I really am obsessive about music. And my own official website, if you've ever been to it, is almost like a music blog as well, because I write about a lot of like Garbage, for instance. Love Garbage, love Shirley Manson. She's from Scotland. And I listened to a lot of Garbage when I was writing the book. You know, because you've got like a sort of soundtrack, Jesus Jones, you've got Britpop. That's why the 90s is so good, because you've got grunge, you've got alternative rock from America, which I loved. You've got Britpop, you've got the Spice Girls, you know, you've got them all. You've got, well, you know, Scotland during the 90s. I wasn't short of good music.
Without a doubt, you include it there. I thank you so much for a fun time. You said when we were talking about this
I'll be honest,
beforehand,
I wasn't doing anything else.
but you said we
I
weren't
was
allowed.
like, should I do this or why not?
You said we weren't allowed to be too serious, and I think we've talked. You know, we've talked important stuff, but we've had a good laugh while we've done it.
I hope people watching at home enjoyed like an hour out of their week.
Yeah.
And I'll just quickly just say at the end of this month, but I think it's probably at the beginning of May, I'm going to do a live one-man show sort of things that's happening. I won't go into it too much because I've still got to put most of it together to promote Happiness is Wasted on Me and the fact that Scottish bookshops are open again. Hopefully at the start of May, and that will be happening. So, of course, pop along and watch on Facebook Live and wherever else it's streamed.
Brilliant. We'll be there. That will be absolutely, can't wait to see you do that. Thank you everybody for being with us for this session, for your comments. I forgot to read one from Neil out that he read Filth in hospital while full of morphine.
Did you meet my brother there? Hello.
Yeah, but great. Even though we weren't together in the same room and with all these lovely people watching, I've had a real sense that we've all drawn round tonight with a cuppa or a drink and just had good fun. So all the best, Kirkland.
I've finished it, so it's okay.
And listen,
thank you, folks. Bye.
this
Happiness
book.
is wasted on me.
Good night, guys.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. That was really interesting. It's nice when we might just have like a gossip session, as they would say in America. But I agree with you. The 90s was the era, definitely. It was my era as a high school, and I had a couple of years ago when I was at college, I was sitting on the bus and I was just listening to the old Britpop, and one of the guys in my class actually lived in New Bristol. We got the bus together, and he was listening to all his like trashy metal, and he was listening. He must have heard over my earphones. I was listening to Oasis, and he's like, "What are you listening to Oasis for? Is that not a bit old?" And I'm like, "John, Oasis." When I went, when I was young, that's what I was listening to. And then he was in his 20s, and I was born in '84, so he must have forgotten that, you know, I look a lot younger. 1984, well, I was about 37 coming up. So, I mean, when I was in high school, that's literally what I was listening to. And I was like, I think I said when Kirkland's been posting about his 90s hip hop, and I'm like, you know, you just can't beat a bit. And everybody now is into Oasis, you know,
it's funny, isn't it, how the cycle always turns, you know, it's a strange one. I loved as well, like Britpop, not quite Britpop, but Britpop adjacent bands like Dubstar and Manson and all these other bands. I just thought they were all really, really cool. Are we out of the live thing now?
No,
because what I'm going to do is I'm going to just introduce tomorrow's event. If you want to put your book, you're more than welcome.
No, so seconds before I go, something to tell Jackie. So the title, you might not know this, not many people spotted it. Happiness is Wasted on Me. Now, the real reason it's called Happiness is Wasted on Me is because the main character is asexual, and if you say it fast, it becomes a penis is wasted on me.
I could say the same as well, but
that's no. And it's sort of like a pun, but no one quite gets it, and they think it's about depression. But that fits me as well.
Exactly. That is brilliant. Thank you, lovely people. No, I'm gonna have to go. I'm really sorry.
No, I'm going to go anyway. Thank you very much, and at some point we'll see each other for the bar. And have a nice night as well, Lindsay.
Thank you. So
Good
You're
night.
welcome.
I'll let you guys go, but just for
Don't
tomorrow,
press leave.
there's
Okay?
bye.
Bye.
It's from 12 o'clock p.m. It's a crime fiction in Highlands Islands with Helen Forbes, Myra Duffy, and Marcely Taylor. What's the next one? So next one is at 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock is Deadly as the Female with Wendy H. Jones, Tana Collins, and Christine Lawrenson. And then 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock is Dark and Deadly Thrillers with Owen Mullen, Jim Oddie, and Jonathan Whitelaw. And then the last one at 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock is Bloggers Turned Authors with Noel Holton and Shan Bailey. So see you all tomorrow, hopefully. Have a lovely night. Good night.